History of the Amish.
When and why the Amish were formed. The reason for the formation of the Amish can be traced back to 1517 with the Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther and others initiated the Protestant Reformation. Luther believed what truly distinguished this movement from others was their focus on the Church's perversion of the doctrine of redemption and grace. Luther, a pastor and professor at the University of Wittenberg, deplored the entanglement of God's free gift of grace in a complex system of indulgences and good works. In his 95 Thesis, he attacked the indulgence system, insisting that the Pope had no authority over purgatory and that the doctrine of the merits of saints had no foundation in the gospel. In 1525, a group of radical reformers insisted baptism be performed not on infants, but on adults who had professed their faith in Jesus. This group, called Anabaptists, remained as a marginal phenomenon due to fierce persecution, but survived as Mennonites and Hutterites into the 21st century. Anabaptists, meaning rebaptizers, believed baptism required a public confession of both sin and faith, which could only be accomplished as an adult exercise of free will. Persecuted by both Roman Catholics and the Protestant groups, most Anabaptist leaders were executed by the end of the 16th century.
In 1679, Jacob Amann converted to the Anabaptists from the Reformation Church. Amann likely joined the Anabaptists in 1679 and at some point was ordained a preacher and later an elder with the authority to baptize and ordain. He founded the Amish branch of the Mennonites through a schism which he occasioned in 1693 in the Emmental canton of Berth. Jacob Amann's own account of the tragic Amish division of 1693, together with other letters which deal with the same matter, makes it clear he was directly responsible for causing the schism.
Amann orchestrated the excommunication of all the elders and ministers in Switzerland who did not agree to introduce and practice minden, or shunning of excommunicated members. Amann visited the Markirk congregation, where he excommunicated members and nearly immediately started controversy with the ministers of Palatinate, who attempted a reconciliation. Amann found united support from ministers of Markirk, but proceeded to place the ministers of Palatinate under this ban. Years later, Amann and his associates attempted a reconciliation. Ultimately, the attempt failed after Amann confessed only to an error in method and spirit while refusing to surrender their demand for the minden. This division was made permanent due to the intransience of Amann. Amann is responsible for the image of the Amish we see today. Amann also held strict views on the other points, such as the wearing of an untrimmed beard, uniformity in dress, including style of hats, garments, shoes, and stockings, and prohibition of attendance at services of the state church.
Their immigration and organization in the United States. The Amish are still very present in today's world. At the opening of the 20th century, there were 42 geographically distinct Amish settlements in North America, representing 3 or 4 affiliations, or groups defined by their shared views and practices. By 2012, the number of settlements had swelled to 463, and the number of affiliations had multiplied to more than 40. The Amish live in a way that is different to most. To the modern observer, the organization of Amish society may seem loose, fuzzy, and amorphous. There are no national or regional headquarters, annual conventions, or organizational charts, and certainly not an executive director or marketing department to promote Amish interests. From government to religion, the Amish society operates differently. The leadership is non-conventional and primarily congregational. It lacks the hierarchical structure extensively found in most religious bodies.
Along with how they are organized, the way decisions are made also varies from what is seen in other societies. They are in no way highly organized groups with bylaws, articles of incorporation, rules for decision-making, protocols for leadership succession. Shaped by local traditions, their informal organization and degree of cohesion depends on the number of districts in the affiliation, the leadership style of the senior bishops, and how frequently, if at all, leaders within an affiliation meet. Current analysis of settlements, population, and growth. What do the numbers of the Amish look like today? The Amish still have many settlements today around the world. Estimates show that there are nearly 325,000 Amish people living in the U.S. as of 2018. Not only are Amish settlements located in the U.S., they are also located in other parts of the world, such as Canada and South America. Amish studies have estimated the population at 5,865 in Canada and South America. The Amish population is continuing to grow. As the number of settlements have grown, so has their geographic reach. The Amish have traditionally lived in places like Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and Holmes County, Ohio. Now they are spreading to other parts of the country, including New York, Missouri, Wyoming, and others. Montana now has 4 settlements, and Nebraska has 3. A few have popped up in Oklahoma, and there's even one in South Dakota. Some sources say that the Amish are the fastest growing faith group in the U.S. As the Amish population in the U.S. grows, it is forecasted to hit 1 million by 2050. There are many thoughts as to why the Amish population is continuing to grow. Much of the growth has to do with the fact that more Amish children are staying with the religion and starting their own high fertility families. Some people would claim that 90% of daughters and sons get baptized Amish and start families, said lead researcher Joseph Donnermeyer, a professor of rural sociology at OSU. How new settlements are established. Settlements are defined as church districts that share a common history in a given geographic area. Minimally, a settlement must include 3 households. New settlements can be started for many different reasons, including a desire for fertile farmland at a reasonable price, non-farm work in specialized occupations, rural isolation that supports their traditional family-based lifestyle, social and physical environments conducive to their way of life, proximity to family or other similar Amish church groups, and a way to resolve church or leadership conflict.
Another important key to understanding how these settlements are started is learning how they decide where to start their settlement. How do Amish decide where to move? Some factors include land prices. Want to start farming? Land prices are your biggest obstacle. Land availability. Are there enough properties within buggying distance? Legal. Conservative Kentucky Amish are currently having serious problems over the SMV triangle that their counterparts in Ohio and Tennessee are not. The Amish left Nebraska in the 1980s over school issues. Local climate. This is about English locals and Amish newcomers. Have Amish lived in the area before, or do any live in the vicinity now? Have there been clashes of roadways, manure, etc.? Receptive local governments and citizens can ease the transition by putting up hitching posts in town and supporting the local Amish auctions and businesses. Actual climate. How does the actual climate affect growing conditions and human comfort? Road traffic and population. Many settlements have failed due to overcrowding. Closeness to other Amish. To survive, you have to attract enough settlers, not to mention crucial ministry. Employment. If farming is not an ideal option, what scope is there for other employment? The following are ways new settlements can be formed. When different Amish affiliations establish communities in the same geographical area, they are considered a separate settlement. Often, smaller settlements are newer ones founded by a few families moving to a new location. Usually, these new communities remain part of the parent affiliation, but not always. Some daughter settlements eventually develop a separate identity and gradually dissolve their ties to the mother group.
Student questions. What are the rules that the Amish can't have electricity or some of the newer technology that they use when they are on the job? The way Amish deal with technology varies from the way other societal groups may deal with it. Amish communities have dealt with technologies in 5 ways: rejection, acceptance, adaptation, invention, and distinguishing between ownership and access. Amish affiliations vary in their mode of response. The most traditional groups reject more, adapt less, and invent less. The Amish have factors that can help the settlement decide if they would like to reject, adapt, or invent different technologies.
Decisions emerge within a dynamic matrix of sociocultural forces. A single factor will rarely explain a particular outcome. Some of the pertinent regulators include the following. Economic impact. New technologies related to making a living are more acceptable than those involving pleasure, convenience, or leisure. Visibility. Invisible changes are more accepting than visual ones. Using fiberglass in the construction of buggies is easier to introduce than changing the external color of the carriage itself. Relation to ordning. New items that overturn existing ordning are more difficult than those that are free from previous rules that can be grafted on to present the regulations. Symbolic ties. Changes unrelated to key emblems of ethnic identity, horse, buggy, and dress are more acceptable than those without such ties. External connections. Technologies that are open avenues of influence for mainstream culture and outsiders are less acceptable than those that do not.
As the Amish settled in America, why did so many of these communities settle mainly in the Midwest? Why weren't there more of these communities in the southern region? The Amish migrated to Pennsylvania due to William Penn's religious experiment. William Penn, English Quaker leader and advocate of religious freedom, who oversaw the founding of the American Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as a refugee for Quakers and other religious minorities of Europe. The Amish look at what climate is best for their lifestyle. Warmer, humid climate can cause the beard and modest clothes to become a little uncomfortable, especially with limited, if any, electricity. Air conditioning is not common. What made the first Amish person, Jacob Amon, want to leave the Protestant Christian group and start the Amish teachings, church, and religion in 1693? Jacob Amon broke away from the Anabaptists in the schism over the Anabaptists being seemingly too comfortable with the relative tolerance of the ruling noblemen. He felt that the Anabaptists should be separate from the world, practice shunning, feet washing, and to partake in communion twice a year as opposed to once. When did the Amish society start? How is it similar and different today? What do Amish people do now that is different than when the Amish first started? The Amish was started in 1693. Over the years, the Amish have branched out into several different affiliations, settlements, and church districts. These groups are separated by their lifestyles, religious practices, and the views of technology. With these different views, the most complete answer is over the years the Amish have relied less on farming and more on small businesses or non-farming work to make a living. The Amish also face more decisions about technology today due to the advances in the world.